Hey everybody, my name is Tiffany and welcome to our video. I'm super excited to have you all here today because we have a really interesting topic to dive into. We're going to be talking about different Asian cultures and their perspective on gender roles. It's such a broad yet fascinating subject and we're really looking forward to exploring it with you. We've got an amazing group of people joining us for today's conversation. We have Alyssa, who always brings great questions, Sylvia, who's passionate about cultural discussions, Brooke, who adds such thoughtful points, Gabby, who brings unique insights, and last but not least, we have Gabriella. Yeah, that's right, we have two Gabbies, so stay on track.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Hazen, and I'm going to be asking Sylvia some questions about Korean culture and gender roles. The first question I have for her is, how have historical events such as the Korean War and rapid industrialization influenced contemporary gender roles in South Korea? In what ways do these historical events shape social expectations today? So the second question I have for her is, in what ways do Korean media, like K-dramas and music, reflect traditional gender roles today? The next question is, how do factors such as socioeconomic status and sexual orientation intersect with traditional gender roles in South Korea? Up next, we have the fourth question, which is, how do traditional cultural practices such as Chuseok or wedding ceremonies reflect or reinforce gender roles in the Korean society? And finally, we have the last question of this interview, and it is going to be, how do traditional gender roles influence family structures and parenting styles in South Korea? And that is all the questions that I have for you today about Korean cultures and gender roles, Sylvia. I hope you have a great day.
Hi, Alyssa. I really liked your questions that you sent me. To respond to the first question of how have historical events such as the Korean War and rapid industrialization influenced contemporary gender roles in South Korea, I found that during the Korean War, due to how many men were enlisted, women actually stepped into more predominantly male-led roles. Roles such as labor-intensive jobs in factories as well as on farms in order to keep their family income afloat. This push was actually appreciated by a lot of women at the time as they felt a sense of independence for the first time ever. Similar to the US World Wars and how women took on predominantly male roles during that time, when the wars ended, there was a large pushback from men to force women back into being home workers, and this pushback still lingers to this day. It's so interesting to me that this was the first time in Korean history that women felt this sense of independence like this, and as a Korean American myself, it's devastating that women in Korea are still fighting for their rights and more gender equality. In contrast, however, in the Korean Industrial Revolution of the 60s and 70s, there was a pushback from women in Korea. Women took on more factory jobs once more, especially in textiles, forming more gender equality during this time. These historical events have formed much more gender equality over time, but to this day, it's not as equal as in America, and younger generations still attempt to bridge this inequality. Now, to respond to your second question of in what ways do Korean media like K-dramas reflect traditional gender roles today, in a lot of K-dramas, there are very stereotypical character archetypes. They fulfill typical gender roles found in Korea. The women are portrayed as typically nurturing and family-oriented, while the men are strong and portrayed as leaders. Of course, the main highlight of K-dramas is the romance that happens within them, where the gender roles are further pushed. Typically, the woman love interest waits for the man to pursue her, and that is what the story centers around. This message being pushed in modern K-dramas is harmful for modern Korean women, as these gender roles can influence and reflect societal attitudes. Furthermore, in workplace dramas, women are almost always portrayed as supporting roles such as secretaries or assistants for the male leaders in the workplace, further reinforcing traditional views of male dominance in the workplace. Overall, the effect of these narratives in modern K-dramas has a negative effect on Korean women, allowing Korean men to feel justified in their sexism and misogyny. Now, when it comes to how do factors such as socioeconomic status and sexual orientation intersect with traditional gender roles in South Korea, I found that when it comes to socioeconomic status in Korea, it can either lead to a major disadvantage or advantage for women. When women are born into a family with high socioeconomic stature, women have a leg up due to being able to afford higher education and having connections through their family. However, a lower socioeconomic stature, especially when having siblings, can lead to a woman not having an education at all due to parents wanting to fund a male son's education instead, and essentially forcing the female daughter to focus on domestic responsibilities due to financial struggles. This unfortunate difference makes me grateful for the opportunities I have as a Korean American, and makes me feel saddened for the women in Korea experiencing this. Furthermore, regarding sexual orientation, it is tough to comfortably express your sexual orientation to this day in Korea. Due to Korea's heteronormative society, it is typically regarded as taboo to openly be a part of the LGBTQ community. There are familial pressures from family to people in the LGBTQ community to have children and marry into a heterosexual relationship, which creates conflict within Korean families. I emphasize with the LGBTQ community in Korea, and I am happy that there are many people challenging gender norms and this way of thinking in Korea. Now, to respond to your question of how do traditional cultural practices such as Chuseok or wedding ceremonies reflect or reinforce gender roles in Korean society, I firstly want to give a quick summary of Chuseok. It's like the Korean Thanksgiving. It celebrates the fall harvest for 3 days with lots of good food and spending time with family. It emphasizes the importance of family and ancestral reverence. Unfortunately, though, the downside of this tradition is that there is an expectation for women to do all of the large amounts of cooking and performing of rituals during this time. The pressure of making these elaborate meals for large gatherings and families is harmful to women in Korea. But these traditions are a part of Korean culture and have been passed down for many generations or instilled in Korean women. I feel a similar pressure during Thanksgiving with my mom, and I'm happy for the younger generations fighting against this social norm. Korean weddings often portray very clear gender roles. This can be exemplified with the attire given to the women, especially their hanbok, in which the colors and symbols within them typically portray purity and familial ties with the men, while the men's attire typically portray authority and masculinity. Additionally, following the wedding, there is a societal and familial pressure for the couple to have children or for the female to be strictly family-oriented. For your last question of how do traditional gender roles influence family structures and parenting styles in South Korea, I would say that within typical Korean families, the male takes the lead role and makes the decisions. They have the majority of familial power, and in society, have most of the power as well. They're traditionally supposed to be the money makers and are typically less involved with the children and only impose disciplinary. This even reflects in my own home with my own Korean father to this day. However, in contrast, women are seen as primary caregivers and are known to raise their children. In the education side of things, moms are regarded as education managers and are expected to monitor their children's learning and progression. Overall, although these gender roles have been instilled in Korean history, there have been many improvements made on them, and Korean women and younger generations are still fighting against them to this day.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gabrielle Sims, and today I will be interviewing
Gabby.
on Japan's gender roles. For your first question, what are the expectations for Japanese women in the home, at work, and in society?
So for Japanese women in society, they don't have a really huge role because it's very traditional within like standards for women. So usually the role is just to be the motherly figure, raise the children, cook the food, be submissive to the man. And even with work, they don't have a huge role because they're going to be at home all the time to take care of the children. And even with maternity leave, it's not even paid. So I think the role is very small and like limited, I would say.
For your second question, women are often expected to have children after marriage, quit work after that, take on unpaid household chores, and childbearing. What would you expect for Japanese men?
So I believe that if women are doing so much work within the household and society, I would expect a lot out of men since women are doing so much. So I would expect men to obviously like put in the work, do the harsh hours so they can earn the money to, raise a family and praise and kind of spoil their life since they're doing so much. And I would just expect a lot out of men since women are doing so much and kind of doing the hard intensive labor just because women are doing this, so you should be doing this in return.
And then for your third question, within Japan, men are dominating the political field. What is the role of women in political decision making in Japan?
So I would say it feels like anywhere in Asia, politically, women don't have a major role just because it's a male dominated field and women probably have little ability in decision making, if not nothing, just because it's a male dominated field. So women are expected to not do something that men are doing, which is definitely unfair. But yeah, women don't have a huge role in political making. I think it is changing to this day, like, and women are getting more roles, but I'd say like right now, not many roles.
And then for your fourth question, can you describe how traditional idea of marriage has transitioned throughout the years?
So within marriage in Japan, I would say that it starts out as like a perfect marriage. You know, the woman does the childbearing, the man goes to work, takes care and protects the family. But I think now they're starting to realize that marriages aren't always perfect, and it's okay for it to be imperfect. And with that imperfectness in marriages, divorce rates have definitely like skyrocketed because they're realizing I'm not happy in this marriage and I don't want to continue doing this if I'm not happy, which I think is fair. So I would say within transitioning, it starts out as like this great perfect marriage, and now it's kind of the realization I want to be independent kind of vibe.
Nice. And then for your final question, how can the different characteristics of the roles played by men and women in Japan limit their roles and abilities?
So within roles in Japan, I think women are definitely undervalued for their abilities and like the kind of work they can do, and then men are kind of overvalued because you give them so much power, so they kind of take advantage of that. But I think when you're undervaluing women, you kind of ignore their potential within the workplace, because I feel like they can do so much for the workplace and contribute so many of their abilities and ideas to creating like a better society. But because of their sort of limited roles, you limit their potential and abilities to do good in society. Yeah.
Nice. Okay, today we have another interview with
Brig Alexander.
And for your first question, how do traditional Chinese values shape contemporary values on gender roles within families?
In families in China, it is usually the male who is in the top of the household food chain, while women are usually more at the bottom, and then the grandparents are at top because it's always respect your elders.
Right.
And even the children would probably be above the wife, because the wife is always in charge of the household chores, cooking, cleaning, clothing, while the man is expected to do nothing.
For your second question, can you describe how traditional gender roles in Chinese culture have evolved over the last few decades?
This may say they have changed extremely, where they started seeing women as not second-class citizens, lesser beings, and more equals, and a person, not just another woman to be done with, living and tired with.
And for your third question, are there differences in gender roles between urban and rural areas in China?
Yes, in many places, even here in America, where you grow up, you can see different behaviors, where in one place, women will be treated as equals, as people, not an object, versus in somewhere else, they may be treated more poorly and less equally.
And for your fourth question, how is the perception of masculinity and femininity evolving among younger generation in urban China?
They definitely stop with more labeling, stereotyping genders to certain roles and expectations, such as maybe doing construction for a type of career. Many people would usually say that's more of a man's job, instead of saying that a woman could also do that. Or if a man wishes to just simply work in a line of fashion, others would say that it's more a feminine job, but nowadays that's more of a open gender equal career.
Nice. And for your final question, how do you see the ongoing discourse surrounding gender equality influencing future generations in China?
I have a very positive idea that the gap will close and people will become more equal. While today we are still struggling with equality, as well as the fight for the rights that we wish for as women, and even women in China. But I am very hopeful and positive that in the near future we will have that change and goal that we wish for today.
Nice. Thank you very much.